All right, all right, all right. What is up, Rebel Nation? This is Andy McCabe, and this is the weekly Restoration Rebel Roundtable for July 7th of all things, 2022. I'm excited to get going here. Got a couple things to talk about. I'm always keen to bash on Code Blue. So we're going to do a little bit of that today. But first, before we get into it, we're going to do what we always do. And we're going to read the agreements. Let's get in here. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. Agreement number 1, I will protect the value of my services. I will never provide free services, as these only serve to erode the value of similar services industry-wide. I will practice incredible transparency. I will explain the claims process in detail to my client. I will not hide pricing details or manipulate reports. I will not communicate with a third party without also communicating with my client. I do not believe in competition. The restoration companies in my market are part of my community. I will be an active member of my community. It is our unbreakable unity that will create the change that we strive for. And agreement number 4, I am willing to walk away from any project, client, or contract that is not compatible with my values and stated mission. No relationship is worth losing money, sleep, or my humanity. I gotta tell you, the more times I say no, the happier I am. That's just how things work. I've actually got a sign here above my desk that says, say no more. Say no more often. Because we do these things. I'm a firm believer that we are good people by and large. We are in touch with our humanity, and we want to help. And that willingness to help and that willingness to connect with other humans can get us in trouble, especially when that other human doesn't necessarily have our best interest at heart. We got a Mike Hogan coming in the room here. That's good. Let's get him in here. Well, Mr. Davidson and Mr. Roush looks like he's on a phone call right now, and Mr. Moberly are in the house. What's good, up, man? What's good? What's happening?
Just trying to get caught up.
That's a never-ending task, isn't it?
Yeah, but some weeks are, we'll say, better than others, right?
Yes, they are. Well, the short weeks always get us.
Yeah, I had a short week last week too, because I had a trial preparation for a testimony, and then I was out pretty much half the day Monday and more than half the day Tuesday for this case, and I did my first hour-and-a-half testimony. It was fun.
Whoa. Well, yeah. Was it federal court, state court? What was it?
So it was the Cincinnati courthouse. I think it's attached to the 6th district, but it was a massive court building, and they put me on the stand for an hour-and-a-half, and the other side just asked me questions because they didn't have a case for anything.
So they were grasping at straws, hoping you.
They were, yes, which isn't the case, but
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I got an email from Mr. Roush about Code Blue, and I'm going to read that out loud. I'm going to share it with everyone here. But first, I want to talk about on the 28th and 29th of this month, I'm holding an Xactimate and a restoration estimating course. I'm going to deep dive into how I use and how Zach and Joe and all the other Claims Delegates folks use Matterport and Hover and all these 3D scanning technologies to integrate into our claims process, into our estimating process. And I'm also going to talk about, I'm going to show things that I wish I knew when I was starting out. The shortcuts and the workarounds and things like that to make the things that have gone into what I've done with Claims Delegates and make it an estimate writing machine. So my goal is someone's going to take this class and come out of it with the added knowledge and confidence that they can go out and tackle that next big, large loss or just handle a whole bunch of little losses with efficiency. We're going to go through our claims process, our estimating process, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're going to do a half day on the 28th and a half day on the 29th, but I'm going to do a PM, an afternoon on the 28th and a morning on the 29th. So we're going to bookend it right there and send you off into your Friday the 29th, hopefully with a ton of knowledge. So if you want to sign up for that, I'm going to put the link right here, but it's claimsdelegates.com/bootcamp. BOOTCAMP. Boom. And I put that in the feed over here on Facebook. All right, I've got an eye on Facebook. I've got an eye on my other camera here. So I'm going to get into it. Oh, we got a Mr. Martin Hogan. Miss Hogan? Hogan, get in the house. Get in here. Get in here. I'm going to allow you to talk. Get in here. Do that.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Mike Hogan. I can't get on the video for some reason.
That's all right. Well, we got patience. I'm clicking on you. I'm clicking on you.
Okay.
Mike, where are you from?
New York, upstate New York, the Poughkeepsie area, Hudson Valley.
All right. What kind of work you doing?
We do fire, water, mold, trauma, crime scene, crawl space encapsulation, air duct cleaning.
Nice.
And we don't belong to any TPAs. We get those, we send it right back to them, send it to the carrier. We're not even speaking to you.
Yep. Good for you. That's the way to go.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine the other night. He did $1 million last year in insurance work. He netted $50,000.
That's not enough.
That's ridiculous.
That is not enough. Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, that's a large reason. That's why we're here, to help more folks make more money, essentially. How long you been in the group?
In this group here, I just joined. I belong to the various groups, but I've been doing this since 1996.
Okay. Well, you've been doing it officially longer than I have. So you're the old man in the room now.
Yeah, I am 69.
Good for you. Good for you. All right. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Who else we have here? Okay, we got Brian Roush. Sounds like he's still on the phone. So I'm gonna lay the stage here. I'm gonna set the stage. I got an email from Mr. Roush regarding a loss that he did, mitigation. He submitted an invoice. I can open up here without sharing my screen just yet. He submitted an invoice to his client to the tune of, actually, I don't know how much it was, but it was more than what Berkshire Hathaway wanted to pay. So Berkshire Hathaway sent it to Code Blue. Here it is. Oh, whoops, I pulled up the wrong one. I have a redacted version I will share with this version. So it looks like Mr. Roush submitted an invoice for $80,000. And Code Blue, in their infinite wisdom and experience, said that loss, that mitigation should have only been, where is it? Where's my number? Ugh, here it is. No. 31,000. So.
Wow, I could just see Code Blue, some lazy reviewer breaking a sweat while they're in here looking at this. How do we get this down?
Yeah,
50,000.
sure. I haven't seen Brian's work on this particular project, but he does a real good job of documenting. So I have no doubt that his claim package, his MIT package is stellar. Is stellar. All right, here's the redacted version. I'm going to bring this up and let's just walk through it. This is, for those of you who aren't experienced with TPAs and the Code Blue world, this is pretty much par for the course. This is what insurance companies do. They see something, they see somebody they don't like, they see a number they don't like. And by the way, there's very few numbers they do like. And then they say, you know what, we're going to send it to this Fugazi company called Code Blue, and they're going to give us some sort of bullshit example of how this estimate or this invoice should have been less, and we're going to pay based on whatever they say. At the end of the day, I'm going to cut right to the chase, right to the end. It doesn't matter what Code Blue says. It doesn't matter what Berkshire Hathaway says. It matters what you did and what you billed for. As long as you can back up what you billed for, the policy says they owe you to reimburse you for the costs incurred to mitigate your loss. So let's get into it. This is, very highly experienced adjuster. Dear policyholder, I represent AmGuard. Blah, 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 rest and blah. This letter is to advise you of AmGuard's position relative to the mitigation services and expenses for the subject property. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. AmGuard wishes to advise you that it maintains the position that it has issued payment for all reasonable, covered, and related mitigation expenses, and that it will deny additional expenses beyond which were already issued. Smokescreen. This is a smokescreen. They owe what they owe. They owe what was done. And then a little policy, blah, blah, blah. They give you the policy. Yeah, this, I read through this earlier today. There's nothing in here that says what Mr. Roush did was not covered. Okay, they got covered for dwelling, they got covered for structures, personal property. Duties after loss. They even actually say this. Here it is. Duties after loss. What the insured has to do. Give prompt notice. I'm sure they did. Notify the make reasonable and necessary repairs to protect the property. This right here, that is what mitigation is. Making reasonable and necessary repairs. And keep an accurate record of repair expenses. That's called an invoice, and I'm sure they got it for $79,000. Prepare an inventory, show the property, blah, 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 blah. Changes, blah, 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 blah. So I didn't see anything in here that they quoted from their own policy that says they do not cover. Okay? They do not cover land, fine. Other structures, fine. Okay, let's get down to what they said Code Blue did. Suit against us, conditions, suit against us, blah, blah, blah. We wish to remind the insured of the above noted provisions of the policy, blah, blah, blah. AmGuard has received a mitigation estimate. It's not an estimate. They received an invoice for services rendered. Received a mitigation estimate in the amount of $79,908. Due to the size and extent of this estimate, AmGuard sought to have an independent mitigation firm review the proposed estimate in order to determine a fair amount of relative to the mitigation services proposed. The services were not proposed. The services were rendered. Okay. And Code Blue is not an independent mitigation firm. Code Blue is a Fugazi TPA. And if you're watching this, if you're seeing this on YouTube, Code Blue, here's the finger, because you guys suck. Your guys' sole purpose in life is to destroy restoration companies and reduce claim severity. I don't like you. I never have. Go pound sand. All right, I'm getting a little randy today. Okay, Code Blue completed a full file review of the claim, which included a full review of the estimate provided. Wasn't an estimate. Stop calling it an estimate. The services included the remediation invoice. Finally called it an invoice right there. Had been validated by IICRC S520, blah, 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 blah. Code Blue was hired in order to provide an independent assessment of the submitted remediation invoices. Okay, so they switched. He's switching language now. He's finally calling it an invoice. Thank you. Code Blue review the estimate. Oh, switch back to estimate to bring the estimate in line with local pricing guidelines relating to the property. You are in receipt of the Code Blue report, which details numerous issues found with the estimate. Okay, here's the issues that Code Blue said. Lack of line item pricing. Hopefully Brian can address this when he gets off the phone with his client. I don't know what that's about. Multiple instances of too many pieces of equipment and hours relative to the loss size and industry standards. And what does that even mean? Reduction of labor hours based upon relative to this loss size and industry. I'm having trouble following what this guy's saying. Duplicative charges. Okay. Lack of moisture content readings. I find that hard to believe. Lack of psychrometric readings. I find that hard to believe. Failure to separate out asbestos abatement. Okay. So AmGuard was so kind to point out the relevant provisions of the policy that pertain to this issue. Nothing that we read just now, or that I've read in most insurance policies, require that service providers do anything regarding their invoicing. There's no invoicing standards. There's no guideline. There's no invoicing guidelines that exist in any policy in any place in the United States. It might happen somewhere else. So failure to separate out asbestos abatement of a mitigation invoice. So what? So what? Either it's covered or it's not. In this case, I don't see why it's not covered. Due to the variety of issues taken with the estimate, Code Blue arrived at a proposed pricing estimate to more accurately reflect the loss size, the property, and the reasonable and necessary services. About 31 grand. The issued payment, 31 grand. This is the line in the sand. And they even said, if you have a problem with it, talk to the Texas Department of Insurance. And I'm sure they will. I am sure they will. Mr. Sean Mitchell, thank you for this enlightening load of horse shit. So what do we do from here? What do I say to Mr. Roush once he gets off the phone here? What do I say to this insured? I'm going to say, lawyer up, file a proof of loss, which I'm sure you haven't filed a proof of loss, and file a complaint with the Texas Department of Insurance. Do all of them, because there's nothing that Code Blue has over us or you as the insured or the restoration contractor. Code Blue does this every single day, 1,000 times across this country. They look at something, they pick a 50% number, and they try to make their report fit that 50% number. That's all they do. There's no teeth in this, and you don't have a contract with either Berkshire Hathaway or Code Blue. So you are obligated to bupkis when it comes to whatever fugazi guidelines they're trying to throw at you. And the way you fight it is filing complaints and educating your client to the nth degree. You've got to empower and educate your client. You've got to put your client in a position to say, this is not right. This is wrong. I actually did abide by my policy by mitigating my loss to prevent further damage. And you owe me for those costs that I incurred. Period. End of story. There is no other thing related to that. All right, I'm going to open it up to the crowd here. We got 3 people in the room here. Mr. Spears, get in here, and Mr. Stringer, get in here. Mr. Adam Shepard just asked a question in the Facebook feed. Do I have a link to this on YouTube? I will as soon as I upload it. Last week's I haven't even uploaded yet, so there will be links. Go to YouTube and look up Claims Delegates, the Claims Delegates channel. You'll get all the goodness, all the good stuff. All right, I don't want to get that there. All right, so what say you, oh wise sirs and madams of the Restoration Rebel group, you just saw what I saw. I just read it to you. What's your take? What's your experience? Let's have it.
I've never had someone do a proof of loss on something, but then again, I'm not a public adjuster. um, the denials from these third parties, I mean, if you're not a program vendor with these people, they have no power over you, like you said earlier. And I've just always told people to politely remind them that they don't, and that any departmental policies and this, it doesn't matter. And just be nice about it, you know? What are they gonna do? Send you a letter like that?
Right. And that's all they can do.
Right,
That's all they can do. They send in a letter that sounds aggressive and sounds scary, and they use words like suit and things like that, and that's their game. You know, let's keep in mind, Berkshire Hathaway is the king of insurance companies, right? They own Allstate. I think they own USAA. The parent company of of this particular Guard insurance company has been in the game for a long time, and they know all the ways to cheat their own insureds out of the money that they rightfully are owed, and in the process cheat restoration contractors out of the money that they're rightfully owed. All right, who else has got something?
they had the biggest profit margin in 2022 at 81.4 billion.
Huge.
Huge.
$81 billion.
State Farm, obviously wanting to be first in that category, is lagging behind at only 5.6. That's all I got to say on that.
They're not losing money.
No.
You know, and well, they're not in the business of losing money, right? They've got a business, you know, you take it from Warren Buffett, you know, from his own mouth. He says, this is a wonderful setup. People pay us ahead of time for a service that they never want to use. It's the biggest scam we've ever collectively been a part of. So if we know we're getting taken advantage of, we know the value proposition of paying your insurance claims is never going to be there. At least we can force them to at least try to make us almost whole when something actually does happen. You know, there's no return on our money for our insurance premiums every year or every month or whenever. When that money is spent and we don't have a claim, that money is spent, we don't get it back. Berkshire Hathaway gets to keep it. So our job, my job, as I see it, is to try to level the playing field, to try to have some semblance of fairness in this entire process. And it's amazing I still have hair some days, because it can be frustrating and just downright demoralizing some days. Mr. Spears, I'm trying to get you in the room here. I'm trying to get you in. I know you got something to say. I know you do. But all right, Mr. Stringer, how you doing today? No words. Nothing? Nothing?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, man. Good.
I struggle with these guys, Code Blue. I get a lot of their stuff. I sat back and argued back and forth. I've negotiated through stuff with them. The simple fact that, you know, you got I handle a lot of smaller losses. Okay,
Right.
so I'm down in, you know, the $4, $5, $8, $10,000 loss. They're wanting to come in and trim it down. You know, how do you go up against, you know, it's $2,000 difference. I'm not going to budge, and you know, I'm not budging, but how, you know, I'll negotiate through with a couple of those people I got there, and you know, we'll trim $1,000 off the invoice. But you know, how do you justify getting a lawyer for $1,000?
It's hard, and
Yeah.
they know that.
Yeah.
That's the game. They know their biggest opportunity to save money is on the smallest claims, because the smallest claims, the ones they see the most of. So that's where insurance carriers focus their efforts, is reducing the claim severity of the small claims because it doesn't make sense to go get an attorney over $1,000. It doesn't make sense to go to appraisal over $2,000. They know this. They know this full well. But that's also why in most states, if you do file suit and you do end up winning just one more dollar, then the loser of that suit has to pay the attorney's fees. That's one saving grace of filing suit is the right attorney is going to know this and know that if he wins one more dollar, all his fees are going to be paid for.
Well, what I want to know is why, I mean, some of this stuff, it just can't be legal. It's on borderline coercion, coercing, let's say younger contractors that don't know any better, that need that cash flow.
Oh, it's coercion, it's extortion,
Yeah.
It's all of the above.
Yeah, so why are, it just amazes me that we don't have an organization that's going to go, you know what? We're going to sue you guys, and
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on what kind of organization.
100 contractors, online going, here's all my files. Let's find the guy that wants to take this one on and go after him.
Yeah, that would require a high level of coordination and someone willing to stick their neck out there.
Right? That's the whole point.
And to date, no one has yet stuck their neck out. We've got some inklings. I want to give props to RIA and Ed Cross to what they're doing. And God bless them. Let's do more. And that's where there's a big gap here in just organizations and associations across the country. We could be a huge, powerful lobby if we could get our acts together and start working together. And that's frankly what the rebels really started as. Let's at least get in the same page, get in the same room, start talking about the same stuff. That's a starting point. And then, the next level, beyond my pay grade for sure. Mr. Spears, what's up, Rebel? He doesn't know. He's still muted.
I'm half out of it today. Sorry.
There you are.
How you
Welcome.
guys doing today?
You still got all your fingers, though. So you made it through the fourth without firecrackers going off.
Oh no, I taught my 8-year-old how to blow stuff up, and my old lady put me in the doghouse for it because she thought he was too young to know how to do it. And I was like, no, he's fine.
What are you gonna do?
So what are we talking about today?
Code blue.
Blue.
Code blue. And what's amazing, not really amazing, sarcastically amazing, is that every time Code Blue gets involved, their number is roughly 50% of the starting number. Huh. So Mr. Roush submitted an invoice, $79,000. Code Blue says, no, it's worth 31.
Well, I mean, the first thing everyone has to remember with Code Blue is like, so if you sign up to be a Code Blue vendor, pretty much what you do is they are going to you are already working off a modified price list as it is. And then you agree to a reduction amount, and the larger the reduction amount you agree to, the more work they'll give you. So like you say, I'll come in 15% less, or I'll take 15% off all price list items, and they'll send you a buttload of work. Then as compared to somebody that says they're only going to take 5% off. That's how they make their money. And that's how, Code Blue, from everything I've ever been told, pretty much whatever you submit, whatever they get wrote off, the insurance still pays it, but they pay it to them as the processing fee. So,
Yep.
I mean, at the end of the day, the more you're willing to roll over and just say, okay, I'll take this off. I mean, if you're at 79 and they want to only give you 33, they're trying to make $30,000 of easy money by telling you to kick rocks. And
Yes, they are.
it's not, I mean, it's honestly not saving the insurance company any money. It's just sticking it to the contractors in the hopes that eventually everybody will start acting like, or writing the way they want you to write. So then they are, you're not having as many arguments, which, I mean, I guess in the bad realm means Code Blue would phase themselves out in a long-term way of it. But that's their point, is to get everybody to be writing shitty small estimates. And I mean, when you are Code Blue client, you don't even get to write your mitigation estimate. You send
Nope.
over the Mika report and your photos and all that, and then they write it for you and tell you, okay,
Code Blue
Bob,
tells you how much money you deserve.
yeah, they say, okay, Bob's Restoration, based on the work here that we gave you permission to do and what we didn't give you permission to do, you're going to make X amount of money. Now, that's my biggest, it's the only TPA that actually will write the estimate for you. And it drives me bonkers that anybody would be okay with the concept of I understand I will take a pay cut a little bit because so then I don't have to pay for sales guys to go out and try to market my work. I understand that from being on TPAs themselves, kind of an ideology. It's fine. But why anybody would forfeit their ability to control their money in the sense of, I'll let you also, not only do I have to call you up, walk you through on video what this job looks like, I'm going to let somebody behind a desk who's not there tell me what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. And then I'm going to let you also tell me how much I'm allowed to charge and what I can charge for. Is just, it's beyond me why anybody would even do it. I mean, I don't know why my daytime company does it. The only thing I can tell you is that we get maybe 5 or 6 water jobs from it, but we're on it because of the recon and the fire mitts that we get, because they don't do that. On most fire jobs, I just have the adjuster review and he tells Code Blue, hey, we already talked about it, it's good to go. And we just kind of bypass them, and their job after that point is just to annoy the living shit out of me and call me every day with, I need an update. What's going on? Like it's a stressful thing, but yeah, I mean, they're always going to start coming in at you a minimum of 10 to 15% less, because that's what they want their contractors to be coming in at. And it's just, it's all a crapshoot with them. It's all just let's make this really nicely worded email that puts a little fear of God into somebody. And hopefully these people aren't smart enough to know that we're bullshitting them, and they'll just roll over and say, okay. And I mean, there's a lot, I know tons of non-TPA offices that literally will tell Code Blue to go on somewhere, and my bill. And at the end of the day, they get paid. I mean, it takes longer. It's one of those things that sucks, because everybody wants to get paid within 30 days, if they can help it. But I mean, when you fight Code Blue, like, you got to be able to be ready to be, waiting 45, 65, 180 days to get paid on stuff, because they have the money behind them to stretch it out just for the sake of stretching it out and most contractors, they need that money now. They're just like, okay, fine, I'll take 20% off or whatever, just so I can get ahead and get paid, because it's not worth waiting that
It doesn't cost Code Blue anything. And it doesn't cost Berkshire Hathaway in this instance anything to string it out. It only costs the contractor, and they know that's their MO. They know that we need to get paid in order to make payroll and things like that, and they use that against us. And I think Code Blue should be sued. I think they should be sued hard. Every single time this happens, they should be sued. Every single time this happens, they should be reported to the state that they're operating in as adjusters, as operating without a license.
Well, I'll
Yep.
say this in our group here, since I know that Restoration Rebels doesn't allow adjusters in our group, so I can say this here with a
Not
little bit.
knowingly.
Yeah, with a little bit of safety behind this here. But this is what, if you want to know what pisses me, and I'm sorry about cussing, but pisses me off more than anything about Code Blue, it is that they have on their staff for regional management positions and all, people that own their own restoration companies who are not part of the Code Blue program themselves. They don't let their companies operate on Code Blue, but it's like a secondary job for them. I know for a fact this is true.
Wait. There are people that work for Code Blue beating up contractors who own companies that don't allow their companies to be on Code Blue's program?
100%. I know for a fact.
Huh. I wonder why.
I know of one person in particular. I won't say who or how I know or anything, but
Probably not. No.
they own.
Let's
a
start
restoration
calling them out. I'm so sick and tired of skirting around this. We need to start calling these people out.
Well, I mean, it's not like they're gonna see this anyways, or.
I know, but just consider it, not just you. I'm saying everyone. Everyone's
mean,
like, oh, I don't want to get anyone in trouble. And I'm like, let's hang them out in the street. Come on.
Yeah, like they literally own their own restoration company. They do their own work, but their company is not part of the Code Blue TPA program. But they are one of the regional mitigation people that oversees and makes sure everybody's operating correctly and addresses issues and things like that.
That's funny. All right. So are they part of this group?
Not that, no, trust me, I always make sure.
Okay. Because if they are, I want to make sure they're not ever. And I will bring out the band hammer repeatedly if necessary. Okay. We're going to go to, we're going to segue into what we stopped with last week. Jennifer Sterling, insurance broker, your workers' comp broker. Okay.
Everything.
Yeah. Miss Sterling came on last week to give us some notification. I'm going to find my notes here. Actually, I probably have my
Hey
notes.
guys, I actually have to make a phone call. I'll jump back in the group, call in a minute.
All right,
here.
brother. All right. We'll see you in a
Sure.
sec. Where is my...
I'll give you a rundown real quick.
So
while you're
she
looking.
came on at NCCI. Okay, talking about workers' comp and the misapplication of class codes, worker class codes. I'm sure. Correct me. You know, once you, I want to give you. I'm going to give you the rest. I'm going to give you the microphone for the duration of this meeting. I just want to lay the groundwork here. So there is no workers' comp class code for mitigation. So right now, what some companies are doing, what some insurers are doing, and NCCI is the culprit here, is putting all the work that restorers do under the asbestos class code, which happens to be the most expensive workers class code to insure. And that just means they get more premiums, and the restorer has to, has additional overhead that they have to cover unnecessarily. Okay, did I cover that correctly?
No, you've nailed it. So every job in the world has a class code. Every class code has a phraseology. That phraseology would let an auditor or a customer realize what class code they're allowed to use. In some cases, we have workers' comp audits, and the contractor's like, well, why are they trying to shove everything in carpentry? They're doing painting and drywall. And as I mentioned before you were not allowed to do division of payroll. You would have one technician that would come in the morning. He'd work 8 to 10, digging out wet carpet. Then from 10 to 11, he would start setting up his equipment or building his containment. Then maybe one guy would start peeling paint or scraping paint. So typically before they would say, well, whatever the most expensive class code is, that's where that guy fits. And this would be called an audit. Nobody can actually pick what class code you're allowed to use. Not the broker, not the customer, not the agent, not even the insurance company. The only people that can pick what class code, if it comes push to shove and contractors pissed off that the auditor's trying to make them use an expensive class code, is in 23 states is the NCCI, which is an independent, not government ran, located in Florida, who has all of these 23 states drinking the Kool-Aid and acting like they're doing them a favor by providing them these class codes and these breakdowns and these phraseology. That's called the NCCI. In California, it's the Workers' Comp Information Rating Bureau. Their job is not only to tell you what class codes you're allowed to use, but their job is also to collect all this data every year. If you can imagine, every year when your policy expires for workers' comp, the insurance company is required to give that data, what class code you use, what premium was paid, what class codes were used, and how much payroll was reported. And it gets sent every year to these bureaus. They put it in a blender and they mix it around. They also include how many claims you had, what kind of claim it was, how much was paid out on the claim. They put it in the blender, they mix it all up, they add the 3 years before. So right now, everyone that's paying these rates, it's based on 21, or excuse me, 2018, 2019, through 2020. It all gets mixed into a blender, and that what creates your X mod, or also known as your experience rating mod.
Yep.
Okay, just so you know what the bureaus do.
Your experience modifier. Yep. And
Right.
experience
So,
modifier goes to, affects your rate.
And it affects your rate every year. So if you screw up and you get a dumb guy that gets injured, or by accident, or usually on purpose because they're being dumb, if they do, when I have to have this conversation with you, I'm like, look, let's get safety straight now, because we're going to be talking about this till 2024,
For 3
about
more
this
years.
dumb guy
Yep.
that said he got crap in his eye, and it's because you didn't make him wear goggles. You're bitching about the cost of your rates going up now, but guess what? You're going to keep bitching until 2024,
Yep.
because that claim is going to be part of what's mixed into the blender. Okay.
So talk to me about what's an average. Let's take let's say a $2 million company. They're doing $2 million in revenue. They're doing mitigation. They've got 15 employees. What kind of money are they going to be spending on workers' comp insurance?
So typically, if somebody tells me that they're going to be doing $2 million in gross revenue, I automatically assume that a third of that is going to be payroll. I
Okay.
don't know where this magic formula came from, but that's including the owners, which can either be included or exempt from workers' comp. Now, the benefit of being included is if you fall and you don't have any health insurance and you fall off the roof and you can't get up and go to work, and your company is really going to, not manage without you, and you have no health insurance, including yourself in workers' comp, is not a bad idea. But then that means you have to report your payroll as an owner. Or option B is you can exclude yourself as long as you're an owner. Every state's different. Typically, you have to be at least 15% owner of the business. You're allowed to exempt yourself, and that means your payroll is not included in your workers' comp premium. So you would take a third of that payroll, and I would take that third of that payroll, and because I'm familiar with restoration contractors, I would say, okay, these are the typical class codes we use. We use janitorial, that's like the mush bucket, 9014. There isn't a mold class code, so we're going to put everything in 9014. That's janitorial by contractor, and that could include everything from demoing the carpet to cleaning windows to sucking up water. It's a very ambiguous class code that we like to use. I would also include 8742, which is outside sales. That rate is less than $1. It's super duper cheap. It's great for your estimators. That's why I put them in the outside sales. And then typically there's always a clerical girl. She's 8810. That's less than $1 rate also. And I would include her also.
Okay.
And-
Explain to me what that rate means. Less than $1 of what? What does that mean?
So it means for the rate, like we're going to pick a class code 9014. Let's say if you're in the state of California, the California base rate for janitorial that we would use, because there isn't a mold class code, would be probably about $26 per 100. So every time you pay your employee $100, $26 is going to be the workers' comp premium due.
That's huge.
Huge. Now, in other states, that janitorial class code could be $4, $3. It's so broad. It's so broad.
And
right?
this is money it's essentially an insurance policy, but there's no equity there. That's like that money goes out, it never comes back, right? That's just a cost.
Well, it comes out when you have a claim, because when you have a claim for
let's not jinx us. Come on.
Okay.
If
Okay. But workers' comp was created in the event back in the day, the guy would just be a little workhorse. He'd keep working, hurt or not, because he couldn't, feed his children. So they came up with this and required it by law that everybody needs to carry workers' comp to protect the latency of an injured worker.
Okay.
So the claim would actually, the perfect example of what would happen with a workers' comp claim is even somebody that's in a vehicle that gets injured in a vehicle in the auto policy, not at fault. That is not auto, that is workers' comp. So tread lightly, folks, when you pick who you're going to be in your vehicles or who's going to be your driver, because if that driver gets hurt, that's a workers' comp claim, not an auto claim. Okay. And that sucks,
yeah.
especially when it's not your fault of the car accident. But typically, you have a worker that gets injured. So the worker gets injured, you call and you go, hi, I need to report this claim. Personally, I'm going to say, call me first so we can talk this all out. You know,
Yes.
did we see
Good
it?
idea.
What happened?
Good
Da, da, da.
idea.
Okay, because workers' comp is the biggest fraud in the world right now. I mean, it's great, great fraud. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, oh, how did this guy get hurt? How much are you paying this guy? And they're going to say, oh, what happened to him? They're going to say, oh, he got drywall in his eye from scraping the ceiling. Oh, wow, that doesn't seem like that's going to take him very long. He's probably going to have to go to 3 or 4 doctor's appointments. We're going to assess the medical cost. So for office visits, some physical therapy, maybe loss of a consortium. You can't have sex now. They include that too. Yeah, just to keep it funny, I'm adding in this.
I got drywall in my eye.
Yeah. So anyway, his eye hurt so that he can't work. So we're going to set a reserve for just the medical portion. That's going to be $6,000 in medical. Then they're going to say, oh, poor guy with his eye, follow up. He can't go to work for 6 weeks. He makes $1,000 a week. 1,000 times 6, we're going to set his loss of income to that amount. That is now going to be the 2 separate reserves buckets. And that claim is going to sit open until that guy either finishes all his medical or they write him a check and make him go away, and try to get him to write a check and make him go away so he won't continue to keep open the medical portion to keep dragging it out forever. Okay.
So writing the check to make him go away, that means he's no longer.
Oh, they really
employee?
will. The carrier really will be like, well, dude, come on. You've had 5 doctor's visits. Like, you've laid on the couch. Like, it's time to close this claim. Well, no, I'm going to get a lawyer. No. The insurance companies will say, hey, well, what if we give you a check for 10 grand right now? Would you agree to close the claim and that you don't need any more follow-up medical? Yes, I would. And that's typically where the claim starts exacerbating into being so
Wow.
costly, which inadvertently affects your mod, because that claim
Okay.
also gets mixed in
Okay.
the blender when you're trying to get your experience modification.
Mm,
So that is the basics of how workers' comp is supposed to work.
sure. Okay.
And that's where we talk about how do we pick what class codes we're supposed to use. Because this is all I do. I typically across the country use the same class codes. And typically certain carriers like certain class codes. When you're in a situation where you have a really bad claims history, because you just keep making mistakes,
You're not managing risk well as an organization.
correct. What ends up happening is you have nobody that wants you. So every state has set up a risk pool, and you
Ah.
go into the risk state pool.
Now,
Okay.
is that what NCCI is?
No,
Okay. Okay.
the risk pools are typically ran by that state. Again, as I've done my research, I feel like the NCCI are like the mob. Like, they're like these guys in Florida. When I finally got to it, I'm like, they have no government relation. They're calling all the shots. They answer to nobody, and everybody listens to them.
Yep.
So
That's the mob.
that's the mob. So the mob has decided, okay, so let me go back one step that I need to put in. So when you have a lot of claims, you can go to the state pools, and they take everybody that nobody wants. They also take the class codes that nobody will write. Insurance companies don't have to write every class code. Sometimes if they want to be able to write in certain states, that state will say, hey, you need to give a little to get a little. You have to agree that you're going to take on some of this stuff nobody wants. Okay. Currently, right now, guess what? Nobody wants to write mold or asbestos. Shocker, right? Nobody wants to write mold. Nobody wants to write roofing. Nobody wants to write lead. Nobody wants to write power washers. Nobody wants to write the stuff of everything that our guys do.
Right.
Okay. So a lot of times when new contractors get in bed with this industry, their local agent will be like, oh my God, don't say you're going to do mold, because then your carrier is going to drop you like a hot potato. Like, don't say that.
Nope.
Like, in fact, take that off your website. But you're not really protecting your employee. And if they find out, the carrier can go back 3 years and reassess all your audits and go back and recharge you. So there's no advantage to lying until you get caught, right? So typically when I set up an account, I'll say like, well, let's make sure, I'll do my analysis, and I'll be like, well, what class codes are you using? And a lot of times it's just regurgitated annually, year after year. The guy's like, well, I didn't really say anything. I give them my payroll. They let me use these class codes. Woohoo, lucky me. We currently right now have 3 or 4 insurance companies in the country that want or entertain wanting to get in bed with fire, water, mold restoration guys.
Okay.
And most of them only want to get in bed with you if they've already got your general liability pollution professional package.
So it's an
So when
add-on.
everybody
Okay.
calls me after I've done the trade show, and they're like, hey, can you help me with my workers' comp? And I'll say, well, where's your liability? And they'll be like, well, I don't really want to move that because that's my local guy and he gives me jobs. And I'll be like, yeah, I get it. But you're also not written correctly. You have a pollution policy separate than your GL policy. So you have 2 or 3 different policies. I could put you with a package, but I can't help you with your workers' comp, even though I'd love to be your broker, because unless they get the package, they're not going to write the workers' comp.
Got it.
Make
Got
sense?
it.
Okay.
Yep.
So every insurance company gets to pick what class codes they like. They don't like 5473 asbestos. They don't like roofers, and they don't like 9014 if it includes mold. Now,
If it includes mold.
now
What do
you
you
would think, well, they're not going to take a fire water guy anyway. They don't want it. Okay. So what happens is some states will create a bureau, a risk, what they call a risk. It's like a risk pool. We'll just call it a risk pool. The state will pick up a risk pool through the NCCI. The NCCI will kind of be like the grandfather of, or like the mothership that will actually let you submit a request for a quote with your payroll. And then they'll go and they'll farm and they'll go find maybe a Travelers that will take you. But you went through the pool to get to be with Travelers. If I was a broker and I called Travelers directly and said, hey, will you rate my fire water guy with 9014 that does
They'd
mold?
say no.
They're going to say pound sand. But in order for them to play in that state, they're going to say, yeah, we'll take 5% of those crappy risks that we don't typically want.
Right.
If they do this and if they do that. So the problem is a lot of these guys are getting stuck in these assigned risk pools because either A, they have big, terrible claims histories. B, they don't have an agent that knows where to go. Or C, they are doing class codes that nobody wants. So that brings us to today's problem. It was a little bit of a longer segue, but it seems like I really want to make sure people.
No, this is important. This is important.
Okay.
It needs to be said. Yeah.
Every person I speak with, they're like, my agent never told me any of how this works.
Because
so remember,
agents don't know anything except for how to sell a policy and make the agents are paid on commission.
Same
Right.
thing for homeowners insurance. They don't tell them anything. You're not
No.
covered for jack.
No.
Right.
No.
totally.
Now
Right.
a good agent will. A good agent will, and that's why I have, I can count on one hand the amount of insurance agents that I would recommend to anyone.
Well, thank you.
And I still have a couple fingers left over.
Okay. So it's curious to me because I've had some conversations with Dibdall and I've had conversations with Driscoll. They don't really want to play in it. They never really got their hands into it. For some reason, when I was with Legends, we just liked it. I just started really liking it and trying to understand it. And I love like finding the guy that claims that he's injured and then he went and left for you and he's working down the street. And I'm like, I love that. I'm like a spy. I'm like, I'll take pictures for you. Like, go get pictures of him pushing the wheelbarrow. Let's get him. And then let's get this claim closed, So I like that part of catching the thief. I'm always suspect. I rarely am on the side of the employee. I tend to think that everyone's BSing and trying to get a free ride. That's the way I am.
Yeah, it's
And
unfortunate.
sometimes I know. I should be a good little human.
So I asked you last week, what class codes? Pick a contractor. DR Horton.
Okay.
What kind of class codes does DR Horton use that a restorer doesn't?
Well, he probably. Okay. So here's the thing. I would love to tell you that their underwriting guidelines are the same for everybody, but I would be lying if I said that was true. If they have some risk retention with you or some retention with you, they're going to keep you even if you come and they're like, hey, I just started doing mold. I've been using everything under the carpentry class code. They love you for that. Carpentry is a very expensive class code. If you tell them that you're willing to pay a $25 rate instead of you're gonna haggle to try to get the guy into the drywall rate for 12, like, and you're like, I don't want to deal with breaking it all up. I got 12 guys, they're all carpentry, put them under 5403 and call it a day. They're not gonna bitch about a little bit of money that you're trying to say is for mold. They're gonna take it. They're gonna say they don't do it. At audit, they might catch it, or they might just shove it back in carpentry.
Wow. Wow.
So that's kind of how it goes. If you have a claim history, they're dying to get rid of you. They're just gonna keep rating up your, and then here's another thing. If you've ever, just for fun, and I'll do that next time we talk. If you've ever looked at your workers' comp quote, you'll see things on there where it says, here's all the rates. So you'll say drywall class code 5445, and the rate will be $12. And then there's the base rate, the interim rate, and the net rate. These are all just numbers for them to figure out what they want to charge you. And then they're going to say, we guessed at the beginning of the year that we were going to have $50,000 in drywall. Okay, at the end of the year, the auditor is going to come and he's going to be like, that guy Joey Spumoni wasn't drywall. I can see right here you had him doing this, this, and this. He's doing all kinds of stuff. In fact, I talked to Joey. By the way, when you guys do audits, owners, do not be there. Do not be there. You
Please
cannot
don't.
dispute a workers' comp audit when you're the owner that gave the information. It's hard to say my office manager didn't know what she was talking about. So do not be there. They are not your friends. Don't pretend like they're your friends, but don't also give them a big box and turn off the air conditioning. I've heard the craziest, stupid things. Like, if you want to be diligent, when the auditor contacts you about a week or two after your workers' comp expires, you need to say, hey, could you do me a favor and send me an email? Because I want everything in writing of
Yes.
exactly what you're going to need so I can be prepared. Don't give them more. Don't give them less. They're not the IRS.
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
That's my lesson. And when it comes to the audit and we don't like what the auditor said, or you think they try to put everything in a more expensive class code, that's when you're allowed to write a letter and say, oh, thanks for the bill. I would like to dispute my audit. And can I please have a copy of the final audit with auditor notes? Because we want to see the auditor's notes will say, I got there at 3:30 and Andy was there and he was super nice to me. And by the way, the girl Brittany, who was the clerical girl, they said, well, when I asked her how come the bathrooms, they were so clean out back, she said, oh, Andy always makes us clean the bathrooms. And so the auditor just decided to put her in the janitorial class code instead of the clerical class code.
Yep.
So they're not your friends. Do not talk to them. I hope there's no auditors on here.
I think you're
don't
safe.
think so.
Okay, good.
Okay, so
any,
I want to show everyone. Yeah, there's a common misconception and a common bullshit argument that adjusters make that the labor burden portion of labor rates in Xactimate, that's where the overhead and the profit is. But you just told us that in the state of California, depending on your cost code, you could have a 26%, essentially a 26% tax via workers' comp on your payroll. So I'm going to show what, and this is Vancouver, Washington. So let's come here. Actually, let's just go here. I'm going to share this. And so here is, I don't know if you can see it. My screen is gigantic. I don't know if you guys can see it. Here's a wage, 25 bucks an hour, burden of 12 bucks an hour. So some of that is insurance. The vast majority of that, and there's a labor overhead function, there's 28 bucks. So the vast majority of this particular labor item of 66 bucks is not the wage itself, it's the burden and the overhead. And the burden and the overhead, the vast majority of that number is workers' comp. This is what it costs. There is no margin built into any of this stuff. This is all cost. And Xactimate is fully aware of what workers' comp costs across the country. I'm sure if I was to change this price list to a California price list instead of a Washington State price list, this burden and this overhead would be very, very different. So it's just worth pointing out to everyone when an adjuster says there's money built in, there's margin built in, look at the burden, look at the overhead. That's your profit right there. No, it is not. No, it is not. This is everything related directly to having an employee, paying an employee, paying workers' comp on an employee, insuring that employee, and everything else in between. So there.
Sure. So the interesting thing that you mentioned is a lot of times when you guys do those cost sheets, you're doing it based on the policy after we've found it. And you say, oh, I need a copy of the policy so I can know how to do what you just showed me. And I'll be like, okay, here's your policy. But that doesn't mean at the end of the year when the auditor comes that he's going to allow you to use that class code that we put in there. And it could change significantly. And a lot of guys don't want to waste the time doing what they call division of payroll, but there was a lot of contractors in 1988 and 89 that fought really hard and went to the Supreme Court to say, you have to allow us to do division of payroll. It's not fair. I'm a little small shop with one guy who's going to do 5, 6, or 7 different jobs in one day. And you're going to use the most expensive class code because that's where he might have gotten hurt. So it wasn't fair. And the only way that you can prove that you're allowed to do division under the auditor rules, I encourage everyone to check out what they are for whatever carrier you're with. But typically you're showing a breakdown of what job that kid was on and what hours he worked that job. And you've noted that that was the work he was performing. So you'll say Joey Spumoni. It's so dumb. There are some softwares out there that you can use, like those little plastic keys, they're different colors. And then they click in and out of the battery. I don't know what happened to that company, but there's a bunch of different ones. I also know that there's some spreadsheets that they were able to convert over to QuickBooks. So you could try to do the division also. So typically it would be like Joey Spumoni. I don't know why it's always Joey. 9 to 11 painting. Then you'd put the class code painting, and then you'd put the Jones job. So if they ever think you're lying, they can go and say, hey, on 12/13, Joey was on the Jones job. Can I see the description of that job site? And if there's no painting on that job site, they know you're lying, and they're not going to let Joey use that class code.
Well,
So,
I gotta assume that this is like a big blind spot for most contractors. This is something
100%.
they don't think about, they don't even know about, and they just so okay. Well, I guess this is what I pay. This is what I pay, and it takes another level of sophistication and overhead. It takes a person. It takes an accountant or a bookkeeper, or it's very difficult for a one-man shop or even a 4-man shop.
but it's a lot of money.
To go through all this stuff, but it is a ton of money. We're talking about 10% of your payroll, swing between trades. Would you like to keep 10% of your payroll or keep paying it to somebody else?
Brian's always been one of my smart guys. He made a valid point. He's saying that you don't usually know what class code or what the costs are going to be till after the audit, which is what I was trying to mention. Yes. And not only that, Brian, but even as I was mentioning, when you get your workers' comp quote, there is a base rate, a net rate, and a gross rate. And then if you look at the bottom of the quote, they calculate everything. And then you look down and then they're like, we're going to give you a debit of 0.200. And then they're going to give you a credit. And you're like, now you don't know what you're paying and you're just trying to buy the damn policy.
Yep.
So this is my segue to the next. Thank you. This is my segue to the problem that we're having right now. 5473 is the class code for asbestos. Now, 10 years ago, I brought this to everyone's attention. I tried to mention it last week. I'll try to say it really quick. How I knew this was going to end up being a problem was when those 4 states started to get those mold licenses. I don't recall the names of the 4 states. I know it's Florida, New York,
Texas, probably.
And one other state. Okay. So what happened was those auditors got real clever, and they knew that when they got to the guy's house, the shop, they were going to lie about whether or not they were doing mold. So what they did was they went to the state, they went and saw that they had the mold license. Aha, we got them. Then they'd go to do the audit and they'd be like, hey, dude, You have everything in janitorial. Where's all your mold payroll? You have a
Mm.
mold license. You must be doing mold. Where's your mold payroll? That guy would be like, I don't know. I have like 500,000 in fire water restoration 9014. It's in there. Well, you didn't break it out. Bummer. We're going to take all of it and put it in 5473 asbestos.
Gotcha.
Bummer. Too bad for you. Now, I saw this coming. I knew it was going to be a problem because there's asbestos is a very expensive class code. It was actually created to be so high because we had the latency of an injured worker.
Yep.
It's important to mention that there's not one government entity yet that deems mold as a hazard. Although if you asked 100 people in your group, I would bet some of you would say it is, some of you say it wouldn't. When I brought this up last week to everybody, when I called everybody, there's a lot of people that told me to keep my mouth shut.
What?
Shocking, huh?
Oh,
So what they're trying to do is put now, not just asbestos in there, not just lead in there. Now they're trying to put category dirty water in there. Now they're trying to put all the mold in there. And my thought is, why don't you just make a mold class code?
Why
Well,
not?
no, they're not going to do that. They're just going to change the phraseology of 5473 asbestos. Now, I've
oh.
said to them, how are you going to do this when in order to use 5473, you need to have a general contractor's license, you have to have a special asbestos license, you have to have your employees specially trained with,
Yep.
you're right, Brian. You need to have, your guys have to be fit tested, they have to have their physicals, you have to work with the Department of Safety and Health. I think what we all need to do is push hard with DOSH and get DOSH to say, don't do this. Because
Okay.
what they're
What's
deciding,
Dosh?
Department of Safety and Health, and they're the ones, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, they're the ones that mandate all of the asbestos requirements.
Okay.
So I think we need to go to DOSH and say, hey, how can we stop them from putting everyone in a 5473?
Well, because 5473, if you're not doing asbestos, it shouldn't apply.
So if no contractors can get insured for work that, that everyone has to do, then they won't have insurance. And then the insurance company won't have to pay us because you're not licensed under that code. And you'll have to join the club. They want everyone to
But
be
then we won't do that work.
licensed and certified in certain things with a lot of hoops in it, right?
Well, right. So what's gonna, he's right. So what's gonna happen is the carriers are either gonna charge these astronomical prices and they're gonna be okay that they put your mold revenue and your fire and your water all in 5473. They'll create their own little monopoly. So they have ultimate
Privatize the profits, socialize the costs. Force us into the state risk pools. They're going to force a
That's it.
lot of people, the future contractors, out of the market. They're going to price it out of the market. Then they can bring their pets in, do substandard work, yada, yada, yada.
You named it. Yep.
Might as well start the lawsuit now because there's gonna be many.
So this was my dispute. When I called the NCC, and I joked around that I was talking to Brittany, Kylie, Haley, I don't know which one. But she sounded so dumb, it was one of them. I'm sorry to all the Brittany's and Kayleys and Haleys. I'm sorry. Anywho, I get a hold of the girl and I said, hi, I need to talk to you about this phraseology 5473 and how you're trying to make mold be in this class code, which, you know, was created for the latency of an injured worker. And we don't have anybody, very many. We do have some that are still collecting on that class code from asbestos, but they're all older guys. We don't really have any new claims. So when they actually, I gotta give this segue. When they pick this class code and they determine what the base rates are gonna be for these class codes, they do have to look at that, or are supposed to be looking at like, how many claims have we paid out? What were the claims for? You know, what were the reserves? How long did they go on? That's supposed to be how they come up with these governed, regulated, you know, base rates, right? So when I called Brittany and I said, hey, Brittany, what are you doing? Why are you trying to put the mold guy in 5473? And she's like, well, because it's a hazard. I said, well, technically it's not. There's not a government entity that's deemed it as a hazard, so that's not true. And she's like,
Nope.
well, if you look at the phraseology, it's exactly the same. And I said, explain that to me. She goes, well, they like get there and they build a little containment and they put on their little white suit and they wear a mask and it's the same. And I said, no, Brittany, not the same, because they're not using respirators and they're not using supplied air and they're not bagging it or transporting it. They don't have a license for it. Not the same. She goes, yeah, I know, but, and they're doing it. And I said, you know, that they have their own standard reference guide of how to do this 520, and they've gone over and beyond and did this on their own recourse. And she goes, yeah, but that's how we're doing it. And I said, okay, Brittany, what if Joey shows up to a bait mold and he's wearing a baseball hat and a pair of shorts and a pair of rainbows? Is it still 5473? And she goes, no, then it could be something different. I'm like,
Carpentry.
what? You don't even make sense.
What?
So that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with. That was 10 years ago when I was fighting it. Okay. So I knew this was coming down that pipe. And now here we are, where I met with one of the Indiana, I was working on an account for Indiana and spoke with the president of the Indiana assigned risk. And he had no knowledge. This was last week. He asked me to draft an email to him, but I didn't want to draft it asking. I said, how did you guys decide that you weren't going to let me use 9014 for my guide? And he says, I wanted to go on 5473. And I said, why? And he said, well, we're going to be doing that with everything. He goes, in fact, I just had a conference call with the NCCI. And I go, oh, who was on the call? And he goes, the president of the NCCI, me and another guy and another guy. And we just decided that we're going to put pretty much everything in 5473, and we're going to create new phraseology for it because we don't really have that many claims anymore. I go, yeah, I know. The rate should actually be dropping now.
You shouldn't have that many claims. Yes.
Right. That's what I said. I said, how many claims do you think you have for mold? And he goes, I don't know. And I go, well, 10 years ago, when I said I was going to fight you and I was trying to get my task force together, you told me I had to prove the claim history and show what these claims are for. And now you didn't even consider that. I said, because I can guarantee you my claims for 9014, every one of you guys that call me, it is never for a mold remediation guy who can't breathe anymore.
Never.
It's the guy was trying to put the bed back and he screwed the gun into his hand, or he, you know,
Fell off
he hit
the
the
roof,
ladder with the
ladder.
freaking ceiling fan and it dropped on his head, or, you know, so there's no rhyme or reason of why NCCI is doing this. They're including groundwater. They're going balls to the walls. And I was like calling all cars, and between everybody that I spoke with that you guys all know, you would be very surprised how many people told me to be quiet and let this happen.
Why? Why would
So who-
anyone want to let this happen?
So
Because-
5473, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is the code for abatement for asbestos, but they're trying to put all common tasks for water damage and reconstruction and
They're
remediation.
trying to put restorers to use exclusively the asbestos class code.
Does a consultant need that too now? I mean, they're just gonna say everyone has to have it.
Well, now, see, that's a funny thing about, here's one
See?
thing that I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, here's a crazy thing about 5473. It's a non-dividable class code. So if you have a guy, like I explained, like Joey works 9 to 10, he uses drywall, 10 to 1, he does painting, 1 to 3, he does, you know, I don't know, carpet cleaning.
Either he does asbestos and nothing else.
That's it.
That's it.
He has to be 5473. Just like clerical 8810, that's obvious, because then we'd have a guy say, oh, you know, I got this technician and he's a clerical person, 10 hours at 30 hours, he's a contractor, but I'm using 8810. No, it doesn't work like that. 8810, that's all you can do. So yeah, so they're really going to double down and make sure that they know the reason why they want to use 5473, because it's an undividable class code.
Okay, so what about, I would say probably the vast majority of people are going to hear this and listen to this and watch this are
And I'm going to
contractors.
piss off a bunch of people.
No, I hope not, because
Not in our group.
because
Well, not in this group, yeah, but
this is necessary.
other
So
brokers and other
I would-
insurance underwriters.
I would assume that the vast majority of this audience has workers' comp insurance and pays workers' comp insurance. Does everyone need to go back to their broker and raise the flag here and say, hey, we're overpaying, we're being misclassified? Where does this start? Because
I think the first thing we need to do is have Ed write a letter telling the NCCI that we want to put them on notice, that we find problems with them thinking that 5473 is a suitable class code even for groundwater or for the mold. And I think that we should throw back on them exactly what they did to me 10 years ago when I said, how am I going to win this? And how am I going to win this? And they said, well, it would cost $200,000. This is when I was creating the task force before with Jim Pearson, myself, the president of Century Surety, Chris Tim, and my rest in peace, Bill Lohman from Legends. When we were putting this together, and they said, prove to us how many claims have occurred and what the claims were for. So they haven't done that. They
No.
can't tell us that there's mold claims out there,
No.
that affected the injured worker. And why are they not making a mold class code? What is the problem with that? Because we can easily say, hey, sucking up water, that's carpet cleaning. Taking the lead out of the drywall, we can call that drywall.
Yeah.
There's ways around those other class codes, but
Big
there's
time.
no way around mold.
No, there really isn't. Either you're doing it or you're not.
Now,
Just like
I've kind
asbestos,
of
you're
pissed
doing
them
asbestos
off.
or you're not.
I've kind of pissed them off a little bit because I start quite a few startups. And so typically when they don't have any technicians, they don't have any payroll, but they needed to get on the job or get with a TPA. So I will go ahead and I will create the payroll. And and I know that the states of these 23 states with the NCCI will make me say 5473 for the mold. So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, 5473. Yep, that's Andy. He's the owner. Bummer. He's exempt. What are you going to do now? Neener, neener. Well, they're sick of me on that one.
Well, what are you gonna do?
I mean, I've tried you guys, I've really been an advocate for this industry.
Yeah.
I'm not getting rich by actually throwing the carriers and the brokers that don't want to help me with this.
Well,
So,
but that's their job.
yeah. Well,
If
how
you're-
come I'm
if
the
your
only one that's
broker-
ever explaining how it works and how they're getting screwed?
If your
Like,
broker's
it's
not
really,
going to bat for you, and your broker is not telling you, explaining to you, and having you understand what you're paying for, you need a new broker.
agreed.
There's no two ways. There's no
Because
two.
I don't have many of my clients have ever told me that their prior brokers have even helped them on their audits or like what to expect or how to fight getting the claim closed or how to call the claims adjuster and say, hey, what's the reserve? Like, how long are you going to let this sit open? You're killing me. I'm coming up for renewal. My mod is still sitting at 129 and this claim was from 2 years ago. Why is this not closed? And why hasn't it been published with the Bureau? So my mod would be changed, so my rates would be cheaper. Like, I would say 90% of these contractors have no idea that's how it works.
No. Well, because we're contractors.
And and I love you all.
All right, Jennifer, how do we get a hold of you?
My phone number is 714-767-3687. I'm in all 50 states. Or I can be sent an email to jsterling@sterlinginsuranceservices.com. I cannot do this alone. I tried. I have all the right people that want to help. I just don't know how to get it all together. And I was shocked when I reached out to you to say, help, you guys know what's happening. And then I started getting all these phone calls saying, just shut up, stop talking. Like, let this happen.
Let it happen. Well, that's how we got here,
I
people.
know,
That's how we got here.
I
That's
know.
how we got a health system in this country that doesn't fucking work. All
I
right.
know.
Just let it happen. It'll work out. No, the only person it works out for is those in charge, those making the money. And those making the rules are making the money while the rest of us are paying for it.
Right.
So screw that. Whoever told you to shut up and stop talking needs to pound sand. And I'll come see you and I'll do it for you if you're not able to do it for yourself. All right. Jennifer, I appreciate your time.
Sure.
I want to let's raise this up.
Let's start talking. Yeah, let's figure out how we can create the task force that can take this on. Let's find out who knows somebody with the NCCI. If there's someone that's really proficient in writing, I'm allowed to respond to this guy. He's actually waiting for my email from Indiana, and he said he'd push it up the flagpole for me. When I
Good.
tried to explain it to him, he was like, wow, everything you're saying really makes sense. He had no idea that there was an IICRC.
What?
They had no idea. I said, do you realize these guys are skilled and trained and take classes? They do this on their own merit. They pay for it and they have renewals. Like they go out of their way to be up on, what's new, what's hot, what's not. And you don't even give them the credit to acknowledge they've made their own international standard references. Like shameful. And he goes, wow, he said, you've given me a lot of information. Can you please put it all in writing? And I was like, I'm leaving for vacation. I'll come back. I told you that. I got back yesterday. So here we are. What are we going to do now?
Well, we're going to keep the drum beat and see how many other people we can get to pick up the flag and start running with it.
We need some of the bigger contractors. I think the ones that have a lot of premium on their books.
So I would think, yeah, where's Blue Sky? Where's ATI? Where's JRC? I mean, I'm trying to, hell,
I think
where's
they have a
Service
lot of money, and I think
on
like
this?
ATI probably is just going to be okay with putting everything in carpentry and probably being okay with putting all their crap in asbestos. And they'll just designate those guys that are going to do groundwater. I mean, it really is going to change the whole structure of everything, because typically I see restoration contractors, they have their build back guys, their MIT guys, and then their abatement guys, maybe 3 teams, maybe if they're big with 25 guys. But typically that's the division, because they're trying to divide up those class codes.
Okay. Okay.
So we need to figure out what we're going to do. I'm totally on board. If somebody has any suggestions, if you want to call Ed, I think we should get a core group fast. I don't think we should fart around on this.
No, I don't think so. So
creeping
when
pretty
is
fast.
when is this going to happen? When is
He told me that they were going to start doing it in the next 3 weeks.
get out?
So
Okay.
that's 23 states right there. They're going to ship 5473 into asbestos. Everything.
5, 4, 6,
Everything.
3. They're going to change it to.
I had the narrative. Let me see if I can find it.
They're going to change it to. Oh no, they're going to change it to 5473.
Right.
Whatever.
So if you have anything in 9014, hold on, let me see. Hold on, Indiana.
Oh my God. All right.
They're just coming to get you guys. It's just a bunch of
Well,
crap.
at the end of the day, this is something, once it's done, it's going to be hard. It's going to be harder to undo.
Right. Right.
But at the end of the day, it sounds like we need nationally 3 or 4 new class codes for workers' comp.
Correct. Right. I'm looking for, right, hold on, I'm looking for my notes I got from an underwriter. This is. I'm looking for the exact wording that they gave me about the dirty water. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You can't put dirty water in asbestos class code. But I do think that might be a good way to go, is go back to Dosh, which is in charge of the asbestos industry, and get them to say, there's no way we're gonna be able to babysit everybody because you're gonna mish it all together. The other thing is the Asbestos Association, which I used to do years ago, their trade show. If somebody could remind me what they're called. Is it
No idea.
does anybody remember? The Asbestos Association? When I went to them years ago and did their trade show, they're like, we don't want the restoration guys in our class code because it's
No.
just gonna jack it up again.
Yeah,
And they've worked really hard to bring it down.
yeah,
And down considering to where it was, you know.
right, right.
So,
No, I agree. They shouldn't want any other trades in that trade.
right,
There's gonna be a clear division for sure.
right.
All right,
Okay.
well, I'm gonna pump this. It's gonna go live, and we need to see how many other people see this rock that's falling downhill in a meaningful way.
And
see
quickly,
who
and
step
very
out in front of it.
quickly, and the thing that I'm telling you, it's like in the thick of the night. To think that these guys could have a conference call with 4 people on the call with no rhyme or reason, just to make their life easier. That's just how they're gonna do it. I think they're derelict in their responsibilities to do their due diligence, 100%.
I would agree.
So if there's no pushback, they're gonna get away with it.
You just let the cat out of the bag, so now what?
That's exactly what I did. I don't know. I'll probably lose like 3 appointments.
Uh,
You might gain 30 though.
You're gonna
Yeah.
gain 30.
Hell, I want to call you just to talk to you if you're in all 50.
Okay, I'm here. Well, I love it.
All right, Jennifer, I appreciate your time. Appreciate
All right, y'all. Have a
you
great
bringing
day.
this to our
God
attention.
bless. Thanks for all you guys do. I really appreciate it.
All right,
Stay safe out there. Bye-bye.
will do.
All right,
Yeah.
have a good one,
Bye.
guys.